Let's talk about Bijan Robinson for a second. I believe he is going to be the Rookie of the Year. Now, I am a little biased. You guys know that. And I told you 2 months before they drafted him that I thought this was a real possibility, and it happened. But Bijan, Mike, is favored to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year pretty much everywhere. If you talk to people that are in the game or cover the game, and they're like, yeah, Bijan, because everybody believes he's going to touch it a lot.
Right.
So with more touches,
obviously we need to score more points.
means
he's not lying.
More opportunities for Bijan Robinson. So do you have him winning Rookie of the Year? And if that's the case, the Falcons offense, what kind of explosiveness are we talking about if that happens with Bijan?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's. I do plan on him winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Yes, I plan on us being more dynamic. And again, a lot of this stuff is kind of all connected. If Bijan Robinson is your Offensive Rookie of the Year, pretty good chance we're in the playoffs, and not just a wild card. That we're scoring a lot more points. Defense is going to be lights out, but we're talking about the offensive side. And if he's successful, that makes Desmond Ridder successful. I'm more concerned about how these touches are all going to work out. I mean, I don't care how we get there. We're going to win games, but curious, how does Pitts bounce back from the injury, right? Bijan Robinson, how much is going to be, is he going to average more catches or actually attempts of running the football over the course of the season? That'd be interesting.
It is.
Because you got a guy you got a 1,000-yard rusher already there.
The Pitts thing is interesting, too, because, he's going to open up so much more for Bijan if healthy and able to do the things that we think he can do. But this is one of the things, whether people think the roster's not any good or improved, or whether they think Arthur Smith is a real deal or not, whether they think the defense is going to be better, the one thing everybody's agreeing on is this. And I'm glad they are, because I think they're absolutely right about how this is going to shake out for them. But you said it, Algier, CP, their play and how much they're going to see the ball. This is where that balance thing comes into play, Mike. Not balance for a Sunday afternoon. Balance over the course of a season. Does Arthur Smith sit down and say, hey, I want this guy to touch it at least this many times, and then I need this guy to touch it at least this many times? And as your season goes on and you get in the games week 6 and 7 and you realize, okay, this guy's not touching it as much as we wanted him to, maybe that's one of the reasons why we're not being as productive. I think you have to go into the season with a number. I don't know what it is, but I think you do.
Now, again, Offensive Rookie of the Year, we're talking about, most people have this chart I was looking at. You've got Bryce Young. They think Bryce Young's going to have an amazing year in Carolina's first year. Don't forget, you got Jackson Smith and Jigba from Seattle, Zay Flowers with the Ravens. So maybe he's a 1,000-yard receiver, getting that offense with a new offensive coordinator, and again trying to revitalize Lamar Jackson's career after they gave him the contract. So that maybe a wide receiver might be battling, maybe not necessarily a quarterback. Let's, for our sake, hope that Bryce Young is not even close to being the Offensive Rookie of the Year. So we're going to see this guy twice, including the first week.
Well, here's the deal, though, and because he touches it every down, that's the closest guy that's going to give, I think, Bijan any run for his money. Just because you don't draft a guy this high and don't use him in every way possible. So. You're right, Mike. And by the way, if he balls out, we're talking about Bryce, then that means probably they're in the playoffs. Right. If he's having that kind of season, don't you think?
Well, I mean, everybody's got us pegged as like one of the worst divisions, and they're kind of giving it to the Saints by default because people know who Derek Carr is, and he's a brand. Okay, I get it. And no one really knows, aside from us, who Desmond Ridder is. But I'm with you. I think this division, this is one of those years, just like when we looked at the schedule, when the schedule comes out, we're trying to pencil in, that's a win, that's a loss. We might be a division that surprises some people. Carolina made some pretty good moves to the rest of their roster. I think that, I'm not necessarily sold on the Saints as much as the national media is, but I think because we saw how many holes they've got in their defense, which is a very once vaunted Saints defense. Tampa Bay, I think they're lost in the weeds. Some people, they're all excited though, down. Good for them.
Yeah.
See where it goes with Baker, unless Baker pulls a rabbit out of his butt, right?
Yeah, and I don't see that happening. I don't. I mean, Baker can be a comparable quarterback. I just don't think he's elite. And you need to be elite to take a team deep into the playoffs and win playoff games. And you say, well, he did that in one season. One season he did that with the Browns.
Look, if this thing gets rolling, we've already analyzed the 7 ways to Sunday. There's really not a 2-game stretch where you go, wow, those are 2 losses in your mind. Or you say, okay, look, we understand Jacksonville's a really good team. They're going to be missing their blindside protector for Sunshine.
Yep.
You got a couple of teams out there we're going to see that, look, the Minnesota game is going to be tough. I think that's a tough game. The Lions game is going to be tough. Those Lions are, as you said, a lot of people bet on those guys to be on the come. Speaking of running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, what kind of a difference maker will he be for Detroit?
I do not think that if Bijan doesn't work, that this offense doesn't work. It already worked. We saw it work last year. What happens, though, if Bijan is not who we expect him to be, is it's not as explosive and not as dangerous as we need it to be. And then what happens is teams can now focus on how to slow us down. The goal here, guys, is simple. It's Dukes and Bell Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. When these guys get here in a couple of weeks and rookies report and the vets report a few days later and we start camp, the goal is how many ways can you not attempt to stop us when we're in the red zone? Like, how many ways can we put formations and groupings and all the stuff that coaches talk about out there, and you can't stop us, Mike? That is why the Bijan thing, even if it doesn't work to this degree that we're talking about, if he's not the rookie of the year, I still think the offense works.
Well, you think about the personnel matchups. We talked about this with Coach Arthur Smith in our interview. Still out there, guys. You can find it on Odyssey. Dave Archer's talked about it. Wes Drewham's talked about it with us, too. The idea that you could have Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and then you could have Bijan and Algier in the backfield. And then, okay, let's say it's 2nd and 5. Wait, they're not subbing anybody out. And now the defense has got to keep the same guys on the field. There's all sorts of mismatches you can create. But again, because the narrative now nationally is running backs are over. They're no longer valued. They're undervalued. You don't build around a running back. Look at Saquon. They don't know anything about what we're going to do. They don't know anything about the nuances. And now Arthur Smith, for the first time ever as head coach of the Falcons, has got a full toy chest to play with on the offensive side.
What do you guys think, man? 404-726-0929. You can hit us up on our Solomon Brothers Diamond text line. This whole notion about Bijan, what's he going to do, Dukes? He's going to be Rookie of the Year. That's what he's going to do.
Well, how exciting is it going to be, for instance, you and I are sitting in Mercedes-Benz, and all of a sudden Bijan's in the backfield. Oh, now he's wide. Now he's out wide. And maybe it could be everything from an empty backfield or whatever. The mismatches and the excitement this guy's going to generate because he's that good an athlete.
Yeah, I believe it's all about the touches, and they want to get him the ball as much as possible within reason. Again, this is where
in the flow of the game.
Yes, this is where the Ritter development comes in. We're not trying to force anything to him. I'm not trying to get him the ball just for the sake of getting him the ball. The play calls for it. If he's open, Mike, and the things that we're trying to do and it works, it makes sense, great. But this is where Ritter's development is going to come in spreading the ball around. And if he gets good at that, Mike, then you got problems. Because now is he going to Drake? Well, wait a minute. He went to Drake 3 plays ago. Maybe he's going to hit Drake. Oh, he's going to go to Pitt. He's not going to Pitts? Well, maybe he's going to go. And this is where the guessing game comes in. And now all of a sudden, I believe Bijan becomes more dangerous in that situation.
Right. We've got so many new weapons, guys, and I know that people are looking like the wide receiver group. Well, it's not exactly a star-studded wide receiver group because no one really knows who Mac Hollins is. But we talked about this. The way the tight ends are going to function in this offense, the way the running backs are going to function as wide receivers, it's hard to categorize. And what do we know about sports, Carl? When guys know how to categorize it, they think, oh, it's nothing. Those guys aren't going to be anything special. I think Falcon fans, we're going to be really excited. But again, it all comes back to the conversation you've had all summer about Desmond Ridder. How good is your delivery system going to be for all these potential mismatches?
Yeah, I will say this, though. I do not believe, all right, and it's just hard to say, like, are we run first? And the reason why it's hard to say, what if the first play of the season, all right, the first series of the season is 3 shotgun formations and Desmond Ridder's throwing the football? So are we a run-first offense? Like, you see what I'm saying? Sometimes we get in this, I don't know if we'll know that until maybe week 4 or 5 as the numbers have bared out that, hey, we run the ball more than anybody else. Right. But just to say we're going to be a run-first offense, I don't think that dictates how the game it goes. You can come out at halftime, you could be down 10 points, and all of a sudden Ritter's got to throw the ball around the field. You're not run first. I'm not saying you go away from it, but that is a question I know we've examined a lot, and we're going to continue to because everybody's like, we're just going to hand the ball off. No, we're not.
No, and again, guys, the play action, again, how much better is Ridder going to be working in play action, setting up those receivers down the field? One thing for certain, Mariota, everything you saw last year, you got to flush it. I've heard Squid Billy mention it, Bo Morgan on the morning shift a bunch of times. Take what you saw with Matt Ryan, unfortunately at the end of his career. Take what you saw last year and mesh it, the good parts. Not the missing receivers by 20 feet.
Or the grenade toss.
Not throwing a grenade ball like you did in Charlotte. Take the elements of a quarterback who is he's not like he's immobile. We just don't really think of him as the elite running back because he's not Jalen Hurts, but he can still move in the pocket. It's
going to be a lot of fun. The basis of this conversation, Bijan Robinson is going to win Rookie of the Year. And I'm putting it out there. I'm speaking it into existence. And here's the other thing. Wouldn't that be great for our city and certainly our team?
Right.
Like, part of the problem we've had is, and I've had this discussion nationally, who are the stars on this team? Now, if you are able to get a guy that's rookie of the year, now he's on the map, Mike, and you start to watch him over the next few years, and people say, "Oh man, he might be the offensive player of the year. Maybe he eventually is going to be an MVP." You're watching stars.
Right.
We haven't had that.
No, and we talked about maybe you got an A.J. Terrell jersey or maybe it's a Grady jersey, but there's not a lot of guys buying jerseys on the defensive side because the last couple of years we've had no money to spend on star players. And we have really, let's be honest, we've drafted a lot of skilled positions. We went free agency this year. Maybe Caden Ellis is going to be your next favorite Falcon on the defensive side. We talked so much about this offensive game plan. I just think fans, if things are rolling, Desmond Ridder is going to be a guy that, look, I don't care if you want to quantify, you and I said 5,000 yards, 4,000 yards, 3,000. Just win. The only number I care about is 10 or 11 wins, this team get into playoffs, and then we can figure out how many balls go this and that way. Because people, Carl, you guys go, Pitts has to validate that fourth overall selection. No, he doesn't. Just win. Maybe Pitts, now again, if Pitts is a 1,000-yard receiver, that would certainly look good for Fontenot. But I do think you've got to maybe temper your expectations of Pitts. They also slow-rolled Pitts' work this offseason, too.
They did. And I'm not going to say I'm concerned, but
A little bit.
But I need to see him. No. When it comes time, I need to see him. I mean, like, Mike, if we're at camp and he's on the sideline not working, I'm going to be concerned. And I will tell you guys that's a concern. It's just what it is. I don't know how the medical staff has evaluated at what point he's able to do what. That's what they do for a living. I'll leave that to them. All I know is when I'm up there, the end of the month, and he's sitting on the sideline or not working with the first team, I'm like, okay, what's going on? That's all.
See, here's the questions we get, guys. We're into year one of Desmond Ridder as a starter. RJ hits us up at Dukes and Bell. I think Ridder's got to be more than a game manager this season. What incentive would London and Pitts have to extend their contracts if we run the ball? We haven't even played game one. Can we let this thing just breathe a little bit and let's see how it works? Because maybe Arthur Smith is telling you one thing, he's going to do something else. Just, guys, let it percolate. You're already worried about problems that we don't even have to deal with yet. Chill.
Yeah, the extended of contracts. You know what that comes from, or at least the basis of that is if you're winning, people want to be here.
Right.
I mean, ultimately. Now, you got to have the money to pay them, but if we're winning, people want to be here, and they're going to want to do whatever it takes to win, especially if we're making deep runs.